Hi, I want to talk to you a little bit right now about the idea of communication in a relationship. This was really driven home to me the other night as I was mentoring with a couple that are good friends of ours and talking to them about their massive communication problem that they have in their relationship. And it's almost been entertaining to me as we've got to know these guys really well because they're some of our best friends. And they struggle with communication in a huge way. And it's exactly 180 degrees opposite from myself and my wife Penny. We've built our entire relationship from the time we first started dating on communicating a lot with each other. We just love to sit down and talk and discuss ideas and work out problems that we're having. And now it's not always glorious and grand, okay, because a lot of the times those problems are serious problems and it takes some real deep discussion to get them worked out. But the blessing that we've had is that that's been something that we thrive on, that we enjoy. It's a critical internal part of our relationship. And if you're going to have a good marriage relationship, one of the important principles to understand is you've got to learn to develop that communication between you. You need to get to the point, if you've never been there, or if you were there and you've faded off of that, which is what happened to our friends, you've got to get back to the point where you can sit down and have an enjoyable back and forth conversation with each other that doesn't escalate into an argument every time that you bring something up. And that comes from developing the ability to communicate with somebody. And here's what was happening with my friends. As I was particularly had my buddy cornered, and it was he and I had Penny had the wife in the other room, and they were talking. But what was happening with them is he was saying, I am communicating. I want to communicate with her. I loved when we used to sit down and have these long talks. We don't have them anymore. And every time I try to get her to go engage in a conversation with me, she goes, I don't want to talk to you. And I was like, dude, we got to help you through this communication process because I'm watching the way that you communicate with her, even in my presence when I'm sitting there with you. And it's not a positive interaction because you guys don't understand the principles of communicating with each other. And here's one of the things that I mean. So many people that I talk to think that communication is strictly and simply about the words that come out of your mouth. And I'm here to tell you that the words are definitely less than 50% of the communication process. It comes out with the tone of voice you say the words with, the inflection of your voice, the emphasis you put in different things and things like that. It comes out in your entire body language. It comes out in your facial expressions. You know, if you're saying, I love you, well, that's not quite the same thing as going, I love you. Is it? You start to understand what I mean? And all of those things are playing into the different interactions, plus several dozen other dynamics that come in there. And they all make a difference. And what happens is so often, especially if we're a personality type where we think we just got to get the task done. I need to talk to you, I need to say this, I need to get it out in the open so that we can move on with life. You're going to tend to be the one that says, that thinks I said the right words, therefore they got my message. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the way it works. And even in our relationship where we've had years of practice at communicating with each other, I still find that even as well as I think I am at conveying a message, that very often Penny does not perceive what I said as the same thing that I meant. And that's why we get so many of these offenses that happen in our lives, because we said one thing which we thought transferred a thought, an idea, a feeling to our spouse. And our spouse, because of what they saw and heard from us, heard something entirely different go in their ears that created an entirely different picture in their brain. And that's why it's so critical that we make sure that we learn how to convey a message to somebody. My friend, for instance, a couple of things that are almost laughable that I give him a hard time about is when he gets intense about sharing his feelings and trying to get her to communicate with him, he gets intensity in every feature of his body and all of his body language, and I'm like, look, dude, if it was me, I'd be afraid you were going to whoop on me right about then. And he's just trying to say, I love you and I want to talk to you. You see what I mean? And it doesn't convey the message that he's trying to get out of his mouth, because he's got the right words coming out, but every other piece of his communication thing is skewed off to something that makes it mean something entirely different. And I've laughed when I was teasing him the other day. I says, look, dude, I see you talking to her that way all the time because I know you're trying to get through to her. But I've never seen you talk that way to me, one of your best friends. Why? And it really was an eye-opener for him, because he had to stop and think about what he was actually doing there, what the message was he was conveying. Because as we talked, he said, you're right, I'd never come across like that to you. I'm like, it's interesting. Now, the dynamic in their marriage is such that he's coming across that way and she's coming across at an equally offensive level a lot of the time. And so we're working with both of them to help them see that that's not an acceptable way to communicate with each other. Another piece was, he said, I just hate it because she's always telling me that I'm telling her she's stupid. He says, I don't even use the word stupid. I hate that word. And as we dug into it, it turns out that no, he wasn't saying the word stupid, but every other piece of his communication process was telling her that she wasn't thinking through this thing properly, that she didn't know what she was talking about, that you didn't do that right, or whatever. Now, all of those ideas translate into our brains as, I'm stupid. He's saying I'm stupid. And so while the word wasn't being said, the idea, the picture was being completely, totally expressed that she was stupid. And so she's trying to explain to him how he makes her feel. It's like, you tell me I'm stupid all the time. I don't use that word. No, I don't. But you convey that picture in every single paragraph you say to me. And that's a critical thing that we've got to look at in our communication processes. The other thing that was really interesting is I see that some people have an innate ability to communicate correctly using their words and ideas, and other people have a total non-ability almost to communicate other than on a very surface level. The hi, how are you thing, how's the weather? But they don't understand how to communicate a deeply held important feeling to them. And I watched this happen as he described a particular argument that they had. And she had actually told me about the same thing a couple of days earlier, where she said, he just came in one day and laid down the law to me. This is an ultimatum. This is the way we're going to do it. It's my way or the highway. Take it or leave it. And as I heard him then start to describe this same experience to me a couple of days later, he was saying, well, I went in there and I was pretty upset, and this was really important to me that this certain thing doesn't happen with our kids. And I told her that she's got a choice. You can either do it my way, or you can tell me to go jump in a lake. I'll edit the words a little bit here. This wasn't quite what he said, but that was what he meant, was get lost. So I was giving her a choice. She can either do it my way, or she can tell me to get lost. And I went, man, you have to understand that that's not a choice. She doesn't want to tell you to get lost. She needs you. She loves you. You're important in her life. Well, he says, well, that's not what I meant. I meant you can either do it my way, or you can tell me, give me your input on the situation so we can come to an agreement on this. And I said, you have got to understand that's not what you communicated to her. You didn't give her a choice. You either said you can do it my way, or you can tell me to get lost. And what you meant was, you can do it my way, or you can give me some input so we can come to a meeting of the minds on this. And you didn't say that. Go jump in a lake, or whatever equivalent of that you use, does not equate to I want your input on a subject. So we got to learn to use the correct wording when we're having a conversation and we're learning to communicate. Well, I'm out of time for this segment, but I hope you're starting to get some of the pictures on this communication idea. Talk to you later. Bye.